So what is the difference between my job and the scientist in Jurassic Park? My name is Nathan Wales, and I'm a lecturer in archaeological science here at the University of York. I work on ancient DNA. I study how we can get DNA out of archaeological samples, especially plants, to understand people in the past, their diets, and how they lived. So my background was originally in archaeology, and I became really interested in this developing ancient DNA area. And so I devoted a lot of time to learn molecular biology techniques so that I could apply them to archaeological samples myself. For me, it was just incredible to see what people were able to do with DNA from archaeological samples. So many of the questions that I had been interested in, like how are Neanderthals and humans related to each other, these were being answered with ancient DNA, and it was just the right time for me to go into that area. And then I decided not to follow this common path with studying human remains, but rather look at some other types of material. And so I became really interested in plants. So I've been working on questions about domestication. I've been trying to understand the history of maize and sunflower and grapevine. And there's just so much that we can do to understand even more about the past, looking at other species as well. Plants are the basis of our diet. We have to understand how plants have changed in the last 10,000 years. We're reliant on things like wheat and maize. And if we don't understand where they've come from, we can't really understand where they're going. So by understanding these evolutionary processes, we can better incorporate that information for things like breeding. And that also tells us about people in the past. So all sorts of different applications, really. The favorite part of my job is getting new results, so something that nobody has ever seen before, right? So I'm able to take archaeological samples, and for the first time I can see exactly what's happening 5,000 years ago. Looking at this data, I can see what genes have changed originally, what was under selection very early on, and what's more recent. So for me, it's just incredible to know that I'm the first person to really understand this, to see this for the first time. And then I get to share it with other people, which is also really exciting. Getting to talk to collaborators or the public, telling them about what we can learn using genetic techniques on archaeological samples.
What's the difference between your job and the scientists in Jurassic Park?
So what is the difference between my job and the scientist in Jurassic Park? Well, beyond the fact that that is fiction, the methods are sort of the same. We're not trying to recreate organisms, but rather we are trying to get DNA from ancient remains. We do characterize that genetic sequence, and then we do analyze it to understand how things are related to each other and how they're changing over time. So I am interested in some of those same evolutionary questions that these scientists are. I'm not trying to create a Jurassic Park or a Neolithic park or anything like that, but the questions that we can answer are actually following these same molecular biology techniques that people use for all sorts of different areas. So I think a lot of students coming into an archaeology course, they might be somewhat scared of science. But I think that's one thing you really don't need to be afraid of. We take so much time to teach this. We take so many examples to show you what can be done. And so just like anything that you learn it step by step. Students do come into the Clean Lab with us. They do get to work on this data that we generate. And so you get to be kind of at the front line of this science as well, doing this type of work. The Ancient DNA Lab here at York is unique in many ways. And I think the one that stands out to me the most is that we are based in an archaeology department. Other labs are often based in biology or environmental science. But here, on a daily basis, I get to work with people who are talking about the application of ancient proteins, application of lipids in archaeological science. And so I get to brainstorm with people and talk about all of these different things. And then I get to use these same samples that they might be testing using other methods and work with them using ancient DNA. So it's really this integration of archaeological science within the archaeology department, which for me is just wonderful.